Well, not to be too much of a negative Nancy on this Friday, our government here in the United States just passed a more ridiculous, warrantless surveillance on its citizens. And by the way, plenty of Republicans voted to support it. The Uniparty is alive and well. And it's so messed up. And I'm going to try to explain it without getting too deep into the weeds, because ultimately what you need to know is that both Republicans and Democrats just voted to extend for at least another 4 months a level of surveillance on American citizens never seen before, ever. And they're blaming, apparently, Trump. Apparently. You can see this article. Fears of Trump win add urgency to effort to tighten surveillance laws. Now, you may have seen Section 702 floating around the internet, and essentially it is dystopian. Edward Snowden writes, Congress has voted to pass the NDAA, in which they deceitfully conceal an extension of the warrantless spying program, which is called Section 702, universally opposed by the public. Last year, the FBI exploited Section 702 to spy on Americans, protesters, donors, and even Congress more than 200,000 times. 147 Republicans voted yes, 163 Democrats voted yes. The Uniparty at work. This from the Vigilant Fox. Red alert. Legal expert warns this new reform bill is the biggest expansion of surveillance since the Patriot Act. Quote, buried in the House Intelligence Committee's Section 702 reform bill, which, by the way, has now passed, which is secluded to a floor vote as soon as tomorrow, that was it happened yesterday, is the biggest expansion of surveillance inside the United States since the Patriot Act. Elizabeth, I'll just say, is a prominent legal expert specializing in national security, privacy, and constitutional issues. She serves as the co-director of Liberty and National Security Program at Brennan Center for Justice, a nonpartisan law and policy institute. She is known for expertise in areas such as government surveillance, privacy rights, and the balance between national security and civil liberties. She frequently writes and speaks on these topics, offering critical insights and advocating for the protection of individual rights in the context of national security. The House Intelligence Committee's FISA reform bill, known as the FRRA, is set to significantly expand the scope of entities required to assist in the FISA 702 surveillance. This expansion is due to a change in the definition of, quote, electronic communication service providers, potentially implicating a wider range of businesses and individuals in surveillance activities. Critically, the bill will allow government warrantless access to nearly every communication system in America. Everybody voted by a majority on Democrats and Republicans for this. She stated that under the proposed bill, entities with access to communication transmitting equipment like Wi-Fi routers in hotel libraries, coffee shops could be forced to serve as surrogate spies. She stated that it is not a theoretical concern, but a significant issue, as even FISA court Amici has publicly cautioned against this provision. I don't know if that's an acronym or not. It is, through the seemingly innocuous change to the definition of electronic service communications provider, the bill vastly expands the universe of U.S. businesses that could be conscripted to aid the government in conducting surveillance. Under current law, the government can compel companies that have direct access to communications, such as phone, email, and text messaging service providers, to assist in Section 702 surveillance by turning over the communications to the government. Under Section 504 of the House Intelligence Committee bills, any entity that has access to equipment now on which communications may be transmitted or stored, such as an ordinary router, is now fair game. What does this mean in practice? It's simple. And here's where it gets spooky. Hotels, libraries, coffee shops, and other places that offer Wi-Fi to their customers could be forced to serve as surrogate spies. They They could be required to configure their systems to ensure that they can provide the government access to entire streams of communications. Even a repair person who comes in to fix the Wi-Fi in your home would meet the revised definition that a person is an employee of the service provider who has access to equipment, your router on which communications are transmitted. The bill sponsors deny that Section 504 is intended to sweep so broadly. What is the provision? What is the provision intended to do, and how is the government planning to use it? Sorry, that's classified. At the end of the day, though the government claimed its intent matters little, what matters is the provision on its face actually allows, because as we all know, the government will interpret and apply the law as broadly as it can get away with. This is not a minor theoretical concern. This is nuts. And it passed easily, right? Why? Because Trump? The prospect of Donald Trump using the powers of presidency as a tool of retribution has raised the stakes for a bipartisan push by Congress to tighten what data on American federal investigators can search without a warrant. Yeah, if you're at a coffee shop, the government can now steal your data. Why? Because Trump. Donald Trump has said publicly in recent weeks that he wants to be a dictator for one day, that he will root out the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country. Wow, wonder why 200 Republicans would disagree with that. Some Democrats in Congress are taking Trump at his word, giving new urgency to a long-standing. So because Trump said that, they get to steal our data. They get to have warrantless. They don't need a warrant to survey American citizens, which, according to Edward Snowden, happened 200,000 plus times last year. For years, civil liberties advocates have pushed to block the FBI from searching a trove of data for records of Americans without first securing a warrant. The FBI had its acknowledged repeatedly breaking its own rules and conducting improper searches because nobody cares. Who's going to put them in jail? The current law under Section 702 is set to expire in April after the House and Senate this week approved a short-term extension as part of the National Authorization Act, Defense Authorization Act. This creates a window for early next year for lawmakers to debate meaningful changes to the law. This week, House Speaker Mike Johnson canceled votes on a pair of dueling FISA bills amid disagreements over the program's future. If you vote for this, you do not have my vote. You should tell your congressperson, senators, anybody in your state representatives, if I find out you voted for this, I will never vote for you again, period. I don't care if you're a Republican and you have great tax laws. I don't care. I'll just not vote then, or I'll write myself in. I'm not voting for people that illegally surveil American citizens. The FBI currently makes some 200,000 queries of databases each year and has used it to check for members of the Black Lives Matter movement and people being investigated from J6, according to the court documents declassified earlier this year by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Those failures to protect Americans' data from such searches have brought together an unlikely coalition of lawmakers to plug loopholes and increase congressional oversight over the surveillance authority. Well, they had no problem extending it for another 4 months, though. The abuses of Section 702 have taken place under presidents of both parties. An expert on national security and intelligence surveillance law wrote, "That's why there is such a big bipartisan coalition to reform it. While Democrats in Congress have long supported putting more guardrails on FISA, the prospect of Trump potentially returning the Oval Office in 2025 has intensified those efforts." You mean they've intensified the efforts to allow for more warrantless searches, more prosecutions, more government setups? I mean, are you kidding me? As a result, Jim Jordan, the firebrand Trump defender who chairs the House Judiciary Committee, backed a bill that would allow congressional leaders to attend any FISA court proceedings and place new restrictions on the FBI around using news clips and potential research reports to justify its surveillance requests to the court. They're just going to do whatever they want anyway. This is the thing. Take a look at this vote. These are, plenty of Republicans voted to continue this. And now it's even worse than it ever was. You think they're gonna turn this? You think they're gonna stop doing it in April during election season? I got a bridge to sell you, or some sweet swampland in Florida. Absolutely ridiculous. I hope you're informed by this video. I hope you'll share it with someone else, and we'll talk to you again real soon.